Hey everyone, some gamer dude here. When I Spy first showed Welser, they said support for his judgment condition of having 10 magic stones was coming. Ramp has historically been exceedingly powerful in force of will, so I was rightfully terrified at the prospect of ramp.deck. Did reality live up to my fears? Let's find out. When Unceasing Wind was first shown, I was wondering if Torrent would return. It sort of did, but not really. Unceasing Wind is a quick cast chant for 1 Wind Will that draws you a card then places itself on the top of your deck. Doesn't seem useful by itself, but when you have cards that need chants cast before them for maximum effect, or as we'll see, effects that need a certain count of chants hit, Unceasing Wind can be invaluable. If you have 2 of them, you can just keep cycling them until you hit your chant count. It's a little expensive since each one is 1 Wind Will, and most of these cards need considerably more than one use, but the support is there. I'll be talking more about this card again later. Unceasing Mischievous Boy is a Marvel rare for Wind and again another 4 staple. 500-700 Resonator with quick cast for 2 Wind Will. When he enters, he prevents all damage that would be dealt by target J Resonator for the turn. Good card on a decent body. It's a combat trick that can be used to stop burn damage from a J Resonator's effect too. It's not a complex card, but good. You can also pay Wind to bounce him and cause his other half, a Glimpse of the Prodigy, to cost 2 Wind Will less. So let's jump to that. A Glimpse of the Prodigy is a quick cast chant for 3 Wind Will. Cancel target spell or automatic ability. General counter spell and effect counter for 3 Wind Will seems about right. Not really much to add, it's a well-costed counterspell. The interaction with Unceasing is interesting. You need a total of 4 Wind Will to use it all, but I doubt that's the application you'd go for. Generally speaking, I think you'd pop in Unceasing to protect yourself or something, bounce him if he gets targeted, otherwise just leave him there, and 2 Wind Will to both bounce him and use the Glimpse, otherwise just hardcast Glimpse. I don't really have much else to say about the card. Elixir, Crest Researcher, basically states that the 5 returning rare cluster cards are the 5 crests. 1 Wind Will for a 400-400 Resonator that, when it enters, it searches your deck for a crest, then adds it to your hand. To jog memories, the crests are a set of 5 additions, 1 in each attribute, all with enter effects. Light costs 1 Wind Will and distributes 4 +100/+100 counters between up to 4 Resonators. Fire costs 1 Fire and 1 Void Will and deals 600 damage to target Resonator. Water costs 1 Water Will and draws a card. Wind costs 1 Wind Will and 2 Void Will, puts the top card of your Magic Stone deck onto the field. Darkness costs 1 Darkness Will and puts a Resonator from your grave into your hand. The Wind one is where the most concern is due to the secondary effect of Elixir. Pay 1 Wind, tap her, and put a crest into play. While there is a delay where your opponent can answer Elixir, she is a 400-400, she's easy enough to answer. The total cost means she's essentially Gretel. 2 cost Resonator that ramps you 1 stone. I don't think it's a big worry. I think she'll be answered before she gets to use her tap effect. But this is the ramp that was expected when we saw that Wilson needed 10 magic stones to cast Judgment. Elixir is a little too inconsistent, but isn't the only ramp Welser got. Also, side note, we now know what she looked like before she was overtaken by evil. Search Results is the alternate half of Elixir. A chant for 2 Wind Will, look at the top 5, take 2 non-resonators, put them in your hand, rest on the bottom of the deck. While the obvious intention is the crests, I think they will get some payoff. The fact it can search any non-resonator, not just crests, makes this card's usefulness go through the roof. A better foresee 9 times out of 10. Just grab 2 chants, additions, or regalia from the top 5. I think Research Results may end up the more desirable of the 2 halves of the card, and desirable outside of Welser than inside. This type of search is just too useful. I really thought spinning Aquasol would come back, but we got Elixir's Love instead. Chant for 1 Wind and 1 Void Will grabs a chant out of your grave and has Remnant. Kind of surprised by this. trades quick cast for Remnant and gains an additional void cost. Power creep, and Force of Will doesn't typically charge more for Remnant, but this is a positive in my books. With the recent addition to the game of the alternative cards that are chance in addition to being resonators, and typically are made in such a way that the chant half combos with the resonator half, this is a really good chant. It is kind of like running an additional 8 copies of any alternative card. Monstrous Rush feels a bit out of place, being beast themed. For Wind, that's more of Precious thing. It's also the reason why Unceasing Wind is a thing. It has a torrent adjacent effect. A chant for 2 Wind Will, it does something regarding beast tokens depending on how many chants you've played that turn. If it's your first, you get a 700 beast token with Pierce. If it's your second, a 1000 beast with Swiftness. Third, 1200 with Pierce. And if it's your fourth chance or later, you get all 3. Unceasing Wind was made to get maximum efficiency out of this card. If you have 2, you can keep cycling one into the other and build up the amount of chance so long as you have the stones. It would need some assistance to draw the pieces, but we have research results. From here, presuming you're using Welser for his untap effect, the total cost of this card becomes 4 Wind Will. But there is a better option, Magical Arrow. This set seems to really like Magical Arrow, to the point where I think it needs reprinting already just to stay in format. Magical Arrow keeps coming back to your hand. First gives you a refund on payment with Welser, so for 2 Fire Will and 2 Wind Will but 1 less card, you get the same results. Regardless, I think for 4 total Will, 2 tokens with Pierce, 1 with Swiftness, all with good stats, is really good. I think the amount of restrictions and effort to get it to maximum efficiency is enough. I like it. It's a fair but good card. I was surprised to see that they showed off 3 alternative cards for Wind like they did Fire. Still waiting to see if Light, Water and Darkness finish their rare cycles. Spirit of the Soil is a 500-700 resonator for 2 Wind Will. When it hits the grave from the field, you get a magic stone rested from the top of your stone deck. In a meta situation, or what we've seen of EDL, only Light really has removal that removes things from the game. So most of the time this card can get its trigger off. Light's removal isn't all that common to see in a meta sense. This card is horribly slow without a way to suck it yourself though. But you can do that with Darkness Chance quite easily. Your opponent just has to wait to answer it till ramp doesn't really mean that much, which isn't even that far off when this first hits the board. I think around turn 4 or 5 it'd be safe to dispose of Spirit of the Soil fighting against it. The fact that the stone comes in tapped makes this card even worse. A 1 tap stone ramp on turn 4 or 5 that your opponent has control over is in no way comparable to an enter effect that ramps you 1 recovered stone on turn 2, let alone 2 recovered stone ramp that early via combo play. Spirit of the Soil isn't a terribly impressive card. It's no Gretel, but I wasn't really expecting to see Welser get a Gretel. Saying that, Gretel at 3 total will probably would have been fine over this. Spirit of the Soil is a little too easily played around till it lacks a lot of impact, and it lacks a lot of impact to start with. Loamy Soil is a chant for 1 Wind Will and 2 Void Will that ramps you a stone tapped. I don't really get the design of this one either. I think the old Magic Stone analysis, 1 Wind and 1 Void Will to search for a non-special stone and put it onto your board recovered, or even 2 Wind Will to put the top card of your Magic Stone deck onto the field recovered, would have been fine to print. It doesn't have a body. Yeah, it becomes 1 Will ramp with Welser, kind of, but you need a specific ruler for it and are down a card. Part of me is just thinking this should have been Forceful's version of Bronze Arm Tribe and Fairy Life. 1 ramp as a creature for 3, a spell for 2. This is where ramp always should have been, in my opinion. Turn 3 is really late for ramp, either side, but especially tapped. I'd rather take my chances with Elixir. I think this one is bad. Magical Wind Arrow is probably one of the better modular cards Force of Will has ever concocted. A very niche use or a general application that can save your butt. Quick cast chant for wind, either bounce an attacking resonator or recover a magic stone. Bounce is good for just wind, where it should be, but the second function has more to do with the next card and probably Monstrous Rush. Though we do have to keep in mind, it does not cantrip. You are down a card to lower costs and up the chant count. I think it's also interesting we weren't shown the green 3-cost dragon, probably because the 5-cost dragon needed support. Magical Dragon is the 5 same will cost dragon for wind. 1700 with flying for 5 wind will. When it enters, it ramps you 1 rested stone. You may pay 1 less wind will for each chant you have cast this turn. If the game's power level was lower, I'd be singing this card's praises. It's actually a well-made and balanced card. Big beefy beater, the stone comes in tapped, can have its cost reduced, but has an actual cost to do so. It feels fair. Like a lot of these cards really, but fair doesn't cut it. So the reality of this card. Magical Wind Arrow is a -1 and untaps you a stone. Magical Arrow pumps your chant count up. Wellser untaps you a stone when you cast a chant, but only once. Realistically, how fast can you get this thing out? Well, that's dependent on how many arrows you have. A magical arrow, then 3 magical wind arrows, can get Magical Dragon out on turn 1, but you're down 3 cards and need 5 specific cards in hand. Even turn 2, being down 2 cards and needing 4 specific, it's way too much to ask. Turn 3 is probably the earliest it's reasonable. You can search for a few parts by then. You've drawn a few cards, have reduced your expenditures down to 1 card, and only need 3 specific cards. I've seen it suggested to run Mirage in 4C, since it's a free draw too, but it's still 3 cards to start with, and chance based to draw into the other 4 4C you need to make him free. Even just the following turn, Chance Mirage will get killed, and you need a bunch of 4C to get Magical Dragon's cost down, and for what? A 1 stone ramp a little late, and a 1700 flyer. Versus what everyone else gets, feels insubstantial. I hate to say it, but for all the effort involved, I kind of want Griffin crossing the darkness. Compare this to Resid currently. 2 specific cards, Raya and a part of True Power. By turn 2, the entire play can be finished. Up 2 stones, no overall card cost. Honestly, I think Griffin and Magical Dragon's enter effects should be reversed for the effort going into them. Looks like I was wrong to fear what support Wellser would bring. It's balanced to the point of mediocrity, and would have better suited the game's power levels in 2016. As far as I can see, the only way to get Wellser to cast Judgment in a timely fashion is to run Raya, Griffin, and a part of True Power. Just ramp up as quickly as possible. Use research results to search more a part of True Power, run playsets of all 3 cards. The question you have to ask yourself is, should I just be running Rezard instead? Wellser might get better with the whole set. There might be support cards here that make him look a lot better, but as it stands, he looks to be a bit of a dud. Maybe I'm missing something? If I am, mention it in the comments. I'd love to see what I'm missing. This has been some Gamer Dude, and thanks for watching.